It's only a pool game, they said. South Africa versus Ireland at the Stade de France on a Saturday night in a pool group of the Rugby World Cup in 2023. It doesn't get much bigger than that. The ranked number one team in the world in Ireland versus the 2019 World Cup holders in South Africa. It was always going to be intense. It was always going to be amazing. And this is my video review of that game. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan who's currently living in beautiful Cancun in Mexico on a hot steamy afternoon here in Cancun. I've been watching that amazing game between Ireland and South Africa that just finished a few minutes ago. So in this video I'm going to do a full recap of the game as I saw it, and I look forward to your comments on the game as well. Well, Ben O'Keefe, a Kiwi representative, was the referee for this game, so we did have some input into the game. I think he did a pretty good job as well. Tell me in the comments if you think otherwise. Before the game even got underway, we had those amazing scenes from under the stadium at the Stade de France with both teams coming out onto the pitch, and Siya Kolisi was there singing his song for the South African team and inspiring his players to join in. And what a moment that was when you see a captain, a leader, stepping up and doing that. On the flip side, we had Ireland very focused, very concentrated, but also I thought very calm, and I thought that was a good scene for Ireland as they prepared for this game. Now, a couple of notable things before the game got underway. Bundee Aki was celebrating his 50th cap for Ireland today, so a great milestone for him, and he's been one of the players of the tournament so far, I think, with the leading number of meters made of any player. Fantastic player so far from Bundee Aki, so I was looking forward to him playing in today's game. And the other major thing that I was looking forward to seeing in this game, whether or not the gamble, and I will call it a gamble, would pay off for South Africa by putting a 7-1 split on the bench. And it was going to be interesting to see how that played out over the course of this game. So the game got underway and both teams went right at it and showed us what their intentions were. It was a bit of a roller coaster in the first couple of minutes as the ball went backwards and forwards between the two teams, but it was really obvious that both teams came to play this game, and South Africa in particular wanted to run at any opportunity, and they're playing the game at extremely fast pace. And I think their strategy was they wanted to try and get Ireland under pressure, making mistakes in defense and trying to get some points on the board. I thought if South Africa were able to do that in the first 15 or 20 minutes, that would be their best chance in this game. But the Irish defense was too good and was right up in their face. Now in the second minute, Ireland got a penalty and they chose to kick for touch and to take on the line out, and that showed intent from Ireland that they wanted to put South Africa under pressure in the forward. So it was a very good strategic move, I thought, from Ireland. That decision unfortunately didn't pay off for Ireland, and South Africa were able to clear the ball relatively quickly and get down onto attack and got themselves a penalty as well. This time they decided to kick for goal, and Manny Lebok came up for his first kick of the day, and many people were understanding that Manny Lebok's kicking stats weren't looking very good coming into this game. He was around about 40%, so a lot of nerves in the South African support camp around Manny Lebok's kicking. He got the first one over though, and the Springboks went ahead 3-0 after 4 minutes of play. Now for the next 10 minutes we saw both teams having an opportunity to run the ball and put some pressure on the defense of their opposition, and the Irish strategy was to stick very, very flat and also to have very, very close passes. So when the ball came out to Gibson Park, he'd put it on to Sexton. It'd go very short to Bundee Aki, who would come bundling in as he does to try to get the centre of attack moving another way. And then we had the flankers from Ireland coming in and cleaning out and doing it again. So the Irish strategy, it looked like from that stage in those early minutes, was to punch up close to the South African defensive line and see whether or not they could create opportunities then to go wide. Now, I spoke about it in my preview videos of this game about the importance of clean ball from set pieces, and the line-outs started to be a bit of a bomb dive for Ireland in the first half. They started to lose their line-out, and South Africa were either reading them or there was bad throw-ins from Ireland, so that put them on a little bit on the back foot when it came to the lineouts. However, on the other hand, the scrums were pretty even in the beginning of this match, and Ireland were getting clean ball from the scrums. So even though they were losing out in the lineouts, they were able to clear the ball from the scrums and put some pressure on South Africa. And I must say, in that first 10-15 minutes when Ireland did get the ball, they looked more dangerous than South Africa in terms of being able to break through that line. We saw a number of raids coming in. We saw Bundy Aki, of course, stepping up. And then just after the 12th minute mark, we saw Hugo Keenan go on for a great run for Ireland. He made a breakdown field, and as I said in my preview videos, of course, Keenan is one of those players that can return the ball with creative genius and really break through a defensive line, and that's exactly what he did on this occasion. And Ireland set up a fantastic couple of phases of play where they were getting closer and closer to the South African line, and I thought they were odds on to be able to score at that stage, but unfortunately they lost the ball. A penalty ensued to South Africa, and they were able to clear the ball away from their 22. By the time we'd got to the 25th minute mark of the first half, we'd seen Ireland lose 5 lineouts in a row, and that would have been quite a concern for Andy Farrell. But what this Ireland team is really good at is they're really good at coming up with solutions and finding ways to win ball. In general play, they were much better in the breakdowns, and they were getting in there, particularly Van der Fleer and also Doris at number 8 were having epic games in getting that ball back from Ireland. And we saw even James Lowe and Bundy Aki getting in there and helping out as well to get ball back from Ireland. Gary Ringrose went off for an HIA after 29 minutes, and we saw Henshaw come on for a little while. Thought Ringrose was in a bit of a trouble there. He took one on the shoulder, but he also seemed to get a little bit of a hit in the head. He did come back on in the game later on. Before the half-hour mark was up in that first half, we saw 2 great runs from Damian Dealandi for South Africa. He got through the line, and boy, when he breaks through the line, he takes about 3 or 4 players to bring him down. So they were quite impressive runs for Dealandi. So on that basis, I was thinking that South Africa were going to be able to force some problems through the centres against this Irish defence as the game went on. So we got to the half-hour mark in the game, and it was only 3-0 to South Africa, and boy, it was like a Rugby World Cup final. It was a very intense game. And as a Kiwi who's a neutral in this, I was even tense watching it, thinking that it could go one way or the other. But it was a fantastic game from the point of view that both teams were throwing everything at each other. They were playing the game at pace. The breakdowns were intense. Players were throwing themselves in there and understanding the importance of getting in there first and getting the ball back. And then we saw also on defence from both teams, we saw their lines coming up very quickly and trying to snuff out any chance that the other the opposition backline had. And what was really interesting was, for me, I thought it was going to have to come down to a couple of pieces of individual brilliance to break this game open, and that's what we saw in the 31st minute with Bundy Aki tore off through the South African defence, put a couple of wonderful sidesteps and swerves on, and got right down into the South African 22. It was a fantastic run by Bundy Aki, and it really put Ireland in some strong momentum at the 30-minute mark. Ireland kept the pressure on, and it was really their part of the game around this 30-minute to 35-minute mark. They stayed down in the South African 22. They got a penalty. They went for the line out to try and score a try. It didn't come off on that particular time, but they kept putting more and more pressure on South Africa, and one thought that perhaps it was only going to be a matter of time before Ireland were going to be able to get some points on the board, whether it be through a penalty itself or be able to get through the South African defence and finally score a try. And that's exactly what happened. First of all, the ball came out just close to the post. Johnny Sexton got it. He came back in off his left foot, looked like he was going to go close to the try, went right up to the goalpost. Ireland recycled the ball very quickly. It came out to the right hand side, and then a long pass was passed out to Mac Hansen, who was right and unmarked on the far side. He went in for a great try for Ireland, and they were on the board, and well deservedly so. They'd been keeping the pressure on South Africa for the ensuing minutes of that game, and on the back of Bundy Aki's fantastic break, they made that opportunity down into the South African 22 come out with points on the board, and that's what it's all about. So a great try by Ireland. Mac Hansen in the corner. Johnny Sexton put the extras over, and we were at 7 points to 3 to Ireland at that stage. We got pretty close to half time, so it was going to be interesting to see whether or not South Africa were going to be able to come back before half time. Ireland were enjoying more of the possession and the territory in that first half. Possession was round about 50% to them, and it looked like any time that they got down into the Springboks half, they were putting more pressure on the Springboks than was being done in reverse. The only thing I was really noticing was the Springboks had a good kicking game. So when Manny Lebok or Damien Willemse had a good kick downfield, it did put the pressure on Ireland a little bit. But Ireland were being able to bring that ball back and bring it back with interest, because they got second, third and fourth phase play from those kick returns, which was really, really good for them. So we went to half time. It was 7 points to 3. It felt like a Rugby World Cup final, this game. And who knew what was going to happen in the second half? Because some things that stood out for me in that first half was, first of all, the way that Ireland used their defence in a very strong way against the Springboks. And as I said, the Springboks had trouble getting up and through the Irish defence. So that was very, very well done. Bundy Aki was the standout player for me for Ireland in that first half, although the loose forwards were doing their job very intensely when it came to defence. And also the breakdowns, I thought Van der Fleer and Doris, as I mentioned before, along with Peter O'Mahony, were doing a fantastic job in the breakdowns. You don't have an old dog in your team and bark yourself, and that was the case when it came to Johnny Sexton, because wow, he was brilliant in game management in that first half for Ireland. I thought he did all the right things in terms of getting the ball out and distributing it, getting his players running on good angles, and his kicking was very, very sound when they were looking at strategic kicking. Some of the box kicking was very, very good as well. Probably a downside for Ireland in the first half was the lineouts. They had to fix that, and I'm sure Paul O'Connell and Andy Farrell would have got up the Irish forwards in the halftime break to talk to them about how to turn around that line-out problem that they did have in the first half. Scrummaging was going very well, and I didn't see any advantage to any team at all in that first half. So Ireland went into the changing sheds at half time, I think definitely with the advantage. They had the momentum in that last 10 minutes of the first half, and I started to feel that Ireland could really break this game open in the second half. I felt as though their backs were being more penetrating when they did get the ball, and their defence was very, very strong. So I didn't see South Africa being able to break through in the back line. But we saw Damien Willemse have a really good couple of runs in that first half. He looked extremely dangerous from fullback, and Damien Dealandi, as I mentioned as well, had some good push forwards. Sia Kalesi had a couple of problems in that first half with drop balls, and Etzebeth also got a couple of penalties against him. So for people, or for two players with that much experience, that probably wasn't something that they were proud of in the first half. Peter Steph de Toy was doing his normal stuff, got caught out on a couple of occasions and got penalised, but he was in there on the borderline trying to get his ball back for South Africa as quickly as possible. The front row did a good job for South Africa, but, and we'll see this in the second half, they really did miss Malcolm Marx, I thought, both from a line-out throwing point of view, but also in that scrummage. It was starting to tell at some stages. Now, Manny Lebok was having an off day with his kicking, so in the 46th minute, when South Africa got an opportunity from long range, Faf de Klerk came up and took that opportunity. And something really incredible happened when he took this penalty. It hit the post, it came down, and an ensuing play to South Africa put them very, very close to scoring on the Irish line. So South Africa had a really good couple of phases around about the 50th minute mark in the game, after the nuke squad had come on and started putting some pressure on the Irish forwards. And I think it took the Irish forwards a little bit of time to adjust to the new players coming on the field. The scrum looked a little bit disrupted, and the line out started to change for Ireland at this point in the game. They started winning line out ball. But South Africa were camped down in the Irish 22 for a little while. They got the ball out to the left-hand side, and Cheslin Colby went over for a fantastic try for South Africa, bringing them right back into this game. Now that try was scored out wide, and unfortunately Manny Lebok's kicking boots let him down again, and he missed the conversion opportunity. 7. Now this was always going to be a very close game and no one predicted a blowout, so again it was having that feel of a Rugby Cup World Final. So all these kicks that South Africa were getting opportunities at were really starting to count up, and they were going to be an important part of the outcome of this particular game. Then around the 54th minute mark, we saw Damian Willemse get the ball and put on a fantastic step to get around Gary Ringrose and set South Africa up for another attack at the Irish 22. But the Irish, as they had been doing all day, put in some fantastic defence and cut South Africa down. And what was good about the Irish defence for me was there was 2 or 3 men going in to shut them down, but they also had their clean-up guys coming through very, very quickly to win the turnover ball. So not only was the defence on song, but the breakdown systems and procedures in place were very, very effective. So even though South Africa may have gone to the floor with the ball in the tackle, the Irish went in there and won a lot of ball from tackle turnover. So that was starting to tell as the game went on. But it was only a few minutes later and we were back down with Ireland on attack again in the South African 22, and they got a penalty, and Johnny Sexton was able to kick that over again and keep the scoreboard ticking over for the Irish. And this was something that was really important in this game when it carried on, because they were able to convert the points when they needed to down in the South African half. So with that penalty kick successful from Johnny Sexton, Ireland went out to a lead of 10 points to 8. But as this game kept giving us, South Africa went back down into the Irish half again, and through a scrum penalty, Manny Lebok got another opportunity to have a kick for goal, and he missed another one. And this was really starting to take a toll, I think, on the South Africans. They weren't able to keep that scoreboard ticking over when they did get down into Irish territory. And at the end of the game, this was one of the things that I think made the difference for South Africa on this particular day. Can't afford to have your #1 goal kicker kicking only 40% of penalty attempts. And it was through the 60-odd minute mark that South Africa was getting a little bit of momentum back into the game again, and they were putting on pressure on Ireland, and subsequently they were getting a couple of penalties. Another one ensued around the 64th minute, and Faf de Klerk came up with a long range opportunity from 50 metres, and he pushed this one out to the left hand side. So another penalty went missing for South Africa on this occasion. But also a lot of kudos to Ireland during this period of the game, because one, they kept their heads in the game and they fixed their line-out problems, so they started winning line-out ball. The other thing I saw Ireland doing that was very, very good is they were staying calm under pressure. They weren't panicking. So when South Africa did make those raids, and Willemse particularly made those breaks, the Irish were there in numbers to claim up for defence. And I think that's something that this Irish team has been doing very, very well for a long time now. They're staying very patient when they're under pressure. And if we compare them to teams like the All Blacks, for instance, we're seeing a big difference in the nature of this Irish team. They're able to do that. And I really believe that kept them in this game during those crucial times when the momentum was starting to turn towards South Africa. By this time of the game, both teams had made a lot of changes from their bench, and you could just see that some of the systems were starting to break down and the game was freeing up a little bit more. So there were more opportunities in the breakdowns, and Ireland started doing better and better in the breakdowns and turning that ball over. In fact, they were quite immense around that 60 to 70 minute period in the game. They started to win a lot of breakdown ball, and that put more and more pressure on South Africa. Handling errors were pretty good in this game, and at this stage, around the 65th minute mark, it was 8-7 in favour of Ireland when it came to handling errors. And of course, discipline was pretty good as well. We didn't see any yellow or red cards in this game, which was a really, really good thing. And as far as penalties go, it was pretty even, but I think South Africa were getting pinged more, particularly at the breakdown. And I mentioned Etzebeth earlier in the video. They were getting pinged because they were trying to get up in the Irish faces to try and get that breakdown ball as fast as possible. And when R.G. Snyman, the Viking, came on, we also saw him getting caught for being offside when it came down to trying to charge a kick down from Gibson Park. Now, there was another critical thing that happened to this game around about the 75th mark. The Springboks went on attack They put a penalty kick. Manny Lebok put a really good kick down to about 5 meters out from the Irish line. It was a line out to South Africa. They had a great opportunity to do a rolling maul and to try and score a try, or to obviously distribute the ball out wide. But the throw in from Dion Foree went astray, and that's where I think they missed Malcolm Marx big time in this game. South Africa, it doesn't matter how much practice and experience you've got, someone like Marx who does that thing day in day out in the South African team was sorely missed in that particular situation. So it gave the ball away to Ireland, and they were able to clear the ball away from their line, and that Springbok attacking opportunity went unavailed with no points being scored on the ball. And then, as they did throughout this game, Ireland put the pressure on again. They got themselves back down into the South African territory with some very good kicking from out of the back three. And we got a scrum down close to the South African line where there was a penalty given to Ireland for a scrum infringement from South Africa from the pressure the Irish pack were putting on. By that time, Dan Sheehan had come on, made a difference and made a really big impact, I thought, for the Irish pack, and they deservedly got a scrum penalty. Jack Crowley had come on for Johnny Sexton. He put the 3 points over from in front, and we had Ireland out to a 13.8 lead with just a couple of minutes to go in this incredibly exciting game. As it happened for most of the game, the Springboks got back down into the Irish 22. It was only about a minute left in the game, or in fact we were playing the last minute of the game, and South Africa had another opportunity down there, but the line out got held up, the line out more got held up, and it went to ground with nearly all the players in there. And Ben O'Keefe was a split second in blowing his whistle before the ball came out, and he called the end to the game at that particular stage. So the South Africans weren't given the opportunity to go for that last try because the game had been called over. So what a magnificent game it was at the Stade de France today. It lived up, I think, to the expectations. It was very tense, very good battle from both teams. As I'd said in my videos before this game, my call on South Africa winning was a gut feel. It was a very close game. If they'd had their kicking boots on, it could have been different. But I think the Irish really deserved this game because they stayed in this game mentally. And they played really, really great defense when it was needed against the South African attack. Now, this is the first time I've seen South Africa play Ireland while they've been playing this well. And a couple of things came out of this game for me. So I'm just going to share them with you now for some thoughts. I thought the centre pairing for South Africa ended up being a bit of a problem, even though Damien Zealander was really good in that first half. He made a couple of big runs, but they didn't look like penetrating the Irish defence. And I think Canan Moodie or somebody like that, even Andre Esterhuizen with his size and his power, could have made a bigger difference. And I know a lot of you South African watchers have been dropping comments in my previous videos saying that you would like to have seen a different centre pairing in this particular game against Ireland, and I'm all on board with you now because I can see why. And I think that experiment that Jacques Nienaber was making with Canan Moodie in the centres is something that he probably wants to explore a little bit more, because I think they need someone like Canan Moodie to really make the difference. Another option could be to bring Damien Willemse into that back line and not at fullback. Put Willie Leroux back at fullback and bring Willemse into maybe number 12 for South Africa, because that guy can break a line, and that's what South Africa, I feel, we're missing in this particular game. With Zealander, you've got someone like Bundee Aki, but Bundee Aki is more effective because of the way that he runs angles in the game. Zealander is more of a just a up and basher, and I didn't feel that he was going to get through the game line for South Africa. So that would be one of my comments in watching South Africa against this very good Irish defence, was they need somebody in those centres that's going to be more impactful. Now, of course, we've got Andre Pollard waiting in the wings for South Africa, and after Manny Lebok's kicking performance today, South Africa have got a big issue when it comes to converting points in close games like this. So they already have an eye on that quarter-final opportunity, and they're going to know that those 3 points need to be taken every time that South Africa gets down into the opposition's half, and it's going to be critical in that knockout phase of the tournament. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens now, because for me, Manny Lebok is playing very well in general play. He's getting that South African team around the field, but missing out on those 3 points on a consistent basis and having only a 40% conversion rate of penalty kicks is not going to be good enough, I think, to win you a Rugby World Cup. From an Irish point of view today, fantastic game, very well played, good discipline, and also very good defence structures, and I think that's what won them this game, because when South Africa did look like breaking, the Irish defence was there and being able to hold. Another couple of things that I saw in this game that I think were very important and will be as the Irish team go forward was the kicking of James Lowe from the back. He was able to clear the ball out on a number of occasions with huge punts that went right down into the opposition's territory and gave the Irish defence line an opportunity to set up. So I think that's going to be a very important factor going forward in this Rugby World Cup. Hugo Keenan showed once again why he's so good at fullback. He's very deceptive when he comes into that back line. He returns the ball very, very well, and he also did a couple of really good clean-outs today. Bundy Aki, absolutely huge, fantastic game for Ireland again today. And then inside him, of course, Johnny Sexton, a fantastic game in managing this Irish team around the field, and boy, is he a critical player for this team, and no wonder Andy Farrell took him off with about 10 minutes to go to give him a bit of a rest. A couple other comments on some South Africa players. Kalesi and Etzebeth, I don't think will be too proud of their performances today. They were good, but they weren't brilliant like they normally are, so that's something for those two to go away with and play. Peter Steph de Toit had a good game without being brilliant. Again, I think the Irish back three were very, very strong in this game. Van der Fleer, who looked like he might have even broken a finger in the first quarter of this game. I'm not too sure whether there's going to be any news on that, but it looked like he had a dislocation or something going on there that he had to get strapped up. And I think Doris and Omani were very, very good for Ireland. And Ryan and Byrne, they also turned it around, and it was good to see that Irish line out come to work in the second half. Of the halfbacks in this game, Faf de Klerk and Gibson Park, I think pretty even in those two. I think they both had very good games. They were both busy, they were both distributing well, and their box kicking was on as well. So I don't think there was any real advantage from the halves today. And of course, Cobus de Reinhardt came on for South Africa in the last 10 minutes and didn't have too much time to make a difference from there. So there we go. There's my overview of some of the players in today's game. Impressed with the Ireland in this game was in the second half when they sorted out their line out problems and they made their bench changes, and it really added some value to the Irish go forward. So again, Dan Sheehan coming on made a really big difference for that Irish front row. And I was very impressed with the intellect of the Irish team today. They really were thinking on the field. You could see how they were working collectively to stop the South African attacks, but also to work out the problems when they weren't getting the ball. And in that second half again, they went in extra hard at the breakdowns and were doing some very, very good turnover. And I think in the last 15 minutes of the game, the Irish were quite dominant in the breakdown situation of the game. So things for both teams to work on, but I think both teams should be really proud of the performance they put on. It was a very intense game. As I said, it was like a Rugby World Cup final. It had all the hype that everybody was talking about, and there was only those small differences at this level of rugby that make the difference in this game, and Ireland had those differences today, I felt. So a well-deserved win for Ireland. South Africa certainly not ashamed at all with what they brought in this game. I think to see South Africa try a little bit something different with the reserves, because I think if we saw a Kainan Moody or an Andre Esterhuizen coming on off the bench in that last 20 minutes, that might have been something that could have given South Africa the edge, because the ball possession, the winning from the set pieces were pretty even in that second half, late in that second half, and the bomb squad made an impact when they came on for the first 10 or 15 minutes, but then the game evened out again, and I think that's when South Africa needed some more firepower in their backline, and they didn't seem to have it through Jesse Creel and Damien Zealander. So let me know what you think in the comments about that. That's my summation of this game. I think it was a fantastic game for the sport of rugby. The stadium at the Stade de France was brilliant. It was great to see the South Africans and the Irish fans singing along to this brilliant game, and I think it lived up to all expectations as far as I was concerned. So congratulations to Ireland, well played. You won it up here, I think, in this game, but also your great defence. What happens now going forward with these two teams, that game between Ireland and Scotland is going to be an absolute cracker in Pool B. And we're going to have to see tomorrow what happens with Scotland and Tonga, of course. That's going to be a very interesting one as well. So there you go. There's my wrap on the game. It only finished a few minutes ago, so that's my first impressions on what I felt about this game between Ireland and South Africa. An absolute cracker from the Stade de France. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you're from Ireland, if you're from South Africa, if you were at the game, let me know what that amazing atmosphere was like and what it looked like on our TV screens across the world. I'm going to be back all weekend with reviews of other games. We've got a big weekend up tomorrow with Wales and Australia, Scotland and Tonga. Stay right here on Inside Rugby. The only way to do that is hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and thank you very much for tuning in to my YouTube channel. I'll be back again really soon. Until then, stay safe, stay well, keep enjoying the Rugby World Cup 2023 from France. Bye for now.